premium car manufacturers have traditionally stayed away from the hot hatch market, but that's no longer the case. First of all, we've had this car, the BMW M135i, and now AMG have got in on the act with this, the A45. With a 2-litre turbocharged engine and 4-wheel drive, it's going to be a stern rival for the BMW. But which is going to be the most fun and which is going to be fastest? Well, let's have an Auto Express track battle to find out. So we're going to start with the BMW. Reason being is that this car's the benchmark really, so if the AMG is going to become the best of the pair, it needs to be this car. We've driven this car before, in fact we've done a track battle in it before, and it's really rather special. 6-cylinder engine, rear wheel drive. The engine is a real gem, so it revs to 7,000 RPM, but peak torque is at just 1,300 RPM, so it's just got instant power and it's just so silky smooth. So there you go, 7,000 RPM. You can have a manual in this car, but we've got the automatic gearbox, 8 speeds, so it's quite short ratio, so you don't find yourself using second gear much, so even in these tighter corners, only in third. Now obviously, it's rear wheel drive, so that could be the one area where the Mercedes has got an advantage. This car's got less power than the Mercedes, but identical torque. It's a little bit lighter as well, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see which one comes out on top, because it's going to be really close, I think. This is just a joy to drive though, so rear wheel drive, so we can play around with this. So like through this long corner, you can start to get the thing sliding, just hold it in a massive long oversteer slides. You can't do that in a 4-wheel drive Mercedes, but obviously that isn't quick. And we're going to try and come around now and start a clean firing lap just to see how fast the BMW is and see if that's a benchmark the Mercedes can beat. So we're going to come around and start the lap in a minute. The thing is, on the road, the BMW is really nice to drive, lovely steering, really sort of engaging to drive, and it is good fun on the track as well. But time to concentrate on a lap time. Across the start finish line up to 4th gear, braking down to 3rd gear. Now there is just a little bit of roll in the BMW. It's pretty well controlled. The car just takes a set, but there is some movement. It's not completely tied down the body. So through a long corner like this, the car is working quite hard. It works. You can feel there's a 6-cylinder engine in the nose. It's a little bit heavy, but when you're being smooth, traction's pretty good. Hard on the brakes here into the chicane, down through the gears, and again, you only need to use third, you don't need to use second, because so fairly short ratios and that torque is right there. So up to 7,000 on the exit, to 4th gear, nearly nudging 100 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes here, down to 3rd gear. The average lovely through these fast corners, just getting you a feel of what's going on. Really lovely. Hard on the brakes. Again, carrying the momentum here, trying not to get any oversteer, because the centre's keeping it smooth. A little bit of understeer on the exit. Up to 4th. Now this, through this high speed change of direction, you do notice that bit, a little bit of body movement, but it's really good. Hard on the power. Down to 3rd gear. Try to get nice and tidy into the apex. Just a little bit of oversteer on the exit. Nothing too bad. Loads of feel of what's going on in the BMW. It's really joyous to drive. And this engine's just lovely as well. And across the line. Okay, so how does the Mercedes stack up? Well, for starters, it's £5,000 more expensive than the BMW, so that's one thing to consider straight away. It's got 40 brake horsepower more, but the same torque. Now it's a 2-litre turbocharged engine, 4-wheel drive, and it's got a dual clutch gearbox, so straight away you notice that there's a lovely, it's typical AMG warble on the up change, so it's quite a fast, pretty aggressive gearbox, which is a good thing. But the engine hasn't obviously got the character of the 6-cylinder BMW, so that's a negative. You also notice the body control is really good in the Mercedes. It's a bit tauter, sits a bit tighter on the road than the BMW, but the flip side for that is on the road, the ride's really, really stiff. So it's a mixed bag so far, but as we come towards the start of flying lap, the big question is it going to be faster against a stopwatch? Well, obviously it's got 4-wheel drive. It's not permanent 4-wheel drive, so what the system does is it senses understeer or senses the car losing grip at the front and will send power to the rear. But in the practice laps, I've got to say it's a little bit disappointing because what it doesn't do is if you get understeer through a long corner like this, and you can't really dial that understeer out with the throttle, so if you try to increase the throttle and try and get some power transfer into the rear, it doesn't really work, it doesn't really dial out the understeer too well. But let's try a flying lap and see how we get on. So, out of the last corner, body control is excellent there, and obviously traction there is better than the BMW four-wheel drive. Haven't got any issue with the traction. Really crisp gear change. Down the third gear. Now into these long tightening corners, the Mercedes has quite good body control, a little bit of understeer, and here it's better than the BMW because you've got a big sort of change direction, and that body control helps there, and the car stays quite flat, a little bit of understeer, but really good traction out of the corner. As we come up to the chicane, hard on the brakes, not a lot in it in terms of braking, similar position in both cars, traction's excellent on the exit, a little bit of understeer though towards the far exit of the corner, up to fourth gear, hard on the power, similar top speed here to BMW, just nudging 100 miles an hour, down to third. There is one little irritation with the Mercedes, is that you have to wait a lot later before you go for the downward gear, and that sometimes it's a bit of a pain. It won't select the down gear early enough, and that compromises your entry to the corner. A little bit of understeer on the exit there again. Through this high-speed S's, Mercedes is really good through here. The only thing I would say is, when it starts to, or if it does ever give in to oversteer with the quite snappy as it lets go, not as progressive as the BMW, but the body control is good. It's nice and tidy through these last two corners. Hard on the brakes, a little bit of grumble from the brakes, but nothing too bad. Hard on the power on the exit. Lovely gear shift and across the road. I spent the day driving a fantastic pair of performance hatchbacks, but which one comes out on top? Well, if you want to be fastest against a stopwatch, with its four-wheel drive traction and amazing body control, you're going to need the Mercedes. But if you want to spend a little bit less money, and I think have more fun, then you need to choose the BMW.